So that was a chapter when I started working with more and more investors in London and visiting the Middle East a lot, Qatar, Kuwait and Oman and Saudi Arabia and Dubai. But Dubai, there was no business. It was not a place that I really worked with investors for some reason. It never really... actually, Bahrain is one or two investors that I work with as well. And I remember there was one particular project in particular, which was a permanent Saudi family office. But it was a good friend of mine that was the head of CEO of real estate for that family office, and they'd actually bought the largest project in London, which is the 22 Bishopsgate. Had planning for 64 floors, block offices, and it was all of a sudden being involved in smaller projects and maybe medium-sized acquisitions and portfolios of industrial, and blocks of apartments actually as well that we bought and sold from receivers. Being involved into one of the largest blocks of London. But it was a funny story because it was a friend that I'd got to know over the years in London. Every time he was in London, we'd meet, and I would explain to him to come to investments in Manchester and have a look there. And he'd actually came and visited a few times in Manchester, and I'd be showing him sites, say for example planning with 15 to 20 bungalows and houses and small blocks of apartments, etc. And he used to say, yeah, we're quite interested, etc. then, but we never really actually started any of the projects. And then one day, I think 3 or 4 years later, after communicating a lot and spending some time looking at different projects, he did used to mention actually that I remember we met at a private bank in London, and he did mention that we bought a plot of land. It's just over there somewhere, and he just pointed to a different direction, and I never really thought anything of it. But one day he called me and he said, we may need some help on a plot of land that we bought back in 2007 or 2008 it was. So I said, okay, what kind of help do you need? He said, we're just maybe looking at some advice in terms of the investors that are involved. There was a big collective group of investors, so he was only talking in respect of a portion of them investors rather than all of them, and in terms of legal issues. So in a nutshell, he bought that site for, I think it was 320 million for a block. Well, it was a site next to the Gherkin, 22 Bishopsgate, and then managed to start the project, which got mothballed off just a core that was built after up to about 13 floors. It was mothballed, I think, in 2009 or 2010. When it was mothballed, so this was about 2015, after a few years of no activity, there was obviously investors that were trying to work out solutions and other parties approaching, etc. So he asked me to get on board and help him out. So we looked at different avenues in terms of planning of... There's a whole story to it really, but it's probably a bit confidential to actually share. But in a nutshell, we managed to get the planning rejigged, and then it was sold. There was quite a few bids that came in from different parties, which we had to look at, but we had to have legal representation on behalf of a portion of them investors for that site. And then subsequently it was sold for, I think roughly, they bought the site for something like 320 million, and then they spent another 200 million in terms of construction, or 150 million. So it was at quite a significant loss, because it was just a site that was going to be demolished again after quite a bit of groundworks and some cores that have been developed and right to lights issues being paid. I think it was sold for another 330 million. So they made a loss, but they managed to resolve some of the monies. But it took a good 3 years of my life really to work on that project with with them, and opened so many doors. And it was such a big experience to be involved in a £1.2 billion real estate development office project in the centre or city of London, which was a vast difference really from working with some of the projects in Manchester, if you like. So yeah, it's from that point onwards, doors started opening, and managed to work with quite a few different assets, and in particular central London on behalf of overseas asset management, whereas they just didn't, or maybe they were time poor, and they just maybe did not have the resources or the know-how to how to deal with the UK system, and in terms of things that we probably find easy, like legal systems, council tax systems, placing tenants or keeping the bills on top, and keeping debt collectors away. That's for bills that are coming and nobody's there to actually deal with or understand how to get these utility bills paid, etc. So there was quite a combination of them then, in managing some family tax affairs, etc., that we're investing into UK. Some in prime London and then some into Manchester. So which led to the next chapter. And the next chapter was, we came back into Manchester then and started buying some sites. One particular site we actually bought was the student, well, it was an old pub in Hume, and we'll take this to the next chapter for this one.